Okay, let's dive in. You've handed us a stack of material here, and it's all about joint pain, something so many people grapple with.
Absolutely. It's a huge issue.
But this isn't just the usual stuff about getting older or inflammation, is it? This source seems to have, a pretty bold take on what's really going on
Mm-hmm.
and a specific solution.
That's right. Joint pain, I mean, it's more than just physical, isn't it? It really impacts your whole life, your independence.
For sure.
And we usually hear, manage it with pills, maybe surgery down the line. But yeah, this information you've got lays out a surprising alternative explanation for the root cause.
Exactly. So our mission here really is to unpack what this specific material says, pull out the main ideas, understand its core argument about why joints hurt and what it thinks you should do about it. We're just looking at what's in these pages.
And it starts with a really strong image, doesn't it? That comparison.
Yeah, the door hinge analogy. A healthy joint is like a smooth, quiet hinge. Swings easy.
You don't even think about it.
Right. But the painful joint, that's the rusty, grinding hinge. It catches, it screams.
Mm.
It's painful just thinking about it.
Yeah.
And here's where the source makes its big claim. It says the real problem isn't just wear and tear, it's something specific. It calls the rust enzyme.
And according to this material, that rust enzyme is actually matrix metalloproteinase, MMP for short.
MMP, okay.
Now, these MMPs, they're naturally in our bodies. Their normal job is actually important. They help break down old or damaged cartilage so it can be repaired. Think of it like a tiny cleanup crew.
They're supposed to be good guys,
Mm.
but the source says they turn bad.
Precisely. The material argues they become overactive. So instead of just clearing debris, they start, attacking healthy cartilage too. It uses this really vivid phrase so that they eat holes in it.
Like rust literally eating through metal. That's a powerful image.
It is. And the source claims this is why you get that awful bone-on-bone grinding, the stiffness, the constant pain. That's why it labels MMPs the rust enzyme.
Okay, so if these MMPs are the rust enzyme chewing up cartilage, the obvious next question this material tackles is, what makes them go haywire?
Right. What flips that switch?
And this is where it points the finger squarely at toxic heavy metals.
Yeah, that's the next major pillar of the argument here. It names specific ones: lead, mercury, cadmium, arsenic, nickel, aluminum.
Wow. The usual suspects for toxicity. Where does the source claim we encounter these?
Pretty much everywhere. According to this, it talks about drinking water, industrial runoff, soil contaminants like from fertilizers.
Even the air.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Car exhaust, factory smoke, even emissions from airplanes, the source states. It also mentions consumer goods, things like kids' toys, some cosmetics, and maybe surprisingly, our food.
Food. How so?
Well, the explanation given is that animals absorb these metals from contaminated water, soil, feed. It builds up in their tissues. So when we eat meat or animal products, the source claims we could be getting a concentrated dose.
So heavy metals are potentially all around us, getting into us, and then flipping the switch on this rust enzyme. That's the idea.
That's the core hypothesis presented here, and the source adds another layer why doctors might be missing this link.
Oh yeah. What's the claim there?
It argues that standard blood tests often don't show the true burden of heavy metals. Why? Because, it says, they don't just float around in the blood, they get stored deep inside our bones, over decades potentially.
So it's a long-term accumulation issue, not just what's circulating now.
Exactly. That's the source's argument. This gradual buildup acts like a constant low-level stressor, triggering the body to ramp up MMP production as part of some kind of misguided repair response, which then attacks the cartilage.
And this material suggests that because doctors aren't typically looking for this heavy metal connection, or maybe don't focus on it, they default to explanations like inflammation, age, wear and tear.
Leading to treatments like painkillers or surgery, which this source implies don't address the actual root cause it's identified. It's definitely a critique of the standard approach.
It is. Which leads naturally into the source's take on why common joint remedies might not work, or could even backfire.
Right. It specifically calls out collagen supplements and bone broth.
Things people often take for joint health.
Exactly. But the source argues if these are made from animals exposed to heavy metals, well, you could be consuming a concentrated dose of the very things that trigger the rust enzyme.
Wait, so something intended to build cartilage could, according to the source, actually accelerate its breakdown. That sounds completely backward.
It's definitely counterintuitive, but that's the claim, framed through this heavy metal lens, and it gets even stronger when it discusses turmeric.
Which is hugely popular for inflammation.
But this material calls turmeric the worst offender. That's a direct quote.
Worst offender. Why?
It alleges that some turmeric, particularly imported batches, is sometimes deliberately contaminated with pure lead. To increase its weight and make the color brighter, apparently. It even mentions reports of lead poisoning linked to this.
Pure lead. That's alarming if true.
It is, and the source uses this to hammer home its point. Even something seemingly healthy like turmeric could, paradoxically, deliver a payload of heavy metals that ignite the rust enzyme, making the core problem worse, according to its hypothesis.
Okay, so the picture the source paints is pretty stark. Joint pain driven by this rust enzyme, MMPs, fueled by heavy metals we get from all over, and even popular remedies might be adding fuel to the fire. So what's the alternative? It mentions a 7-second trick, a natural solution.
Right. It pivots here to its proposed answer. The claim is this approach can both block the rust enzyme and help rebuild the damaged cartilage. And the star ingredient it highlights is pine bark extract, specifically a concentrated form called pycnogenol.
Pycnogenol. Okay. Does the source offer any evidence for this? Studies?
It does cite some references. According to the information presented here, studies mentioned in the source suggest pycnogenol significantly dials back MMP activity. One study is cited claiming a 50% reduction in that rust enzyme.
50%, so helping stop the breakdown.
That's the idea. And then on the flip side, the material claims pycnogenol also boosts collagen production. It points to a study where women supposedly saw a 41% increase after 12 weeks. So it's presented as both stopping the demolition and helping rebuild.
And it helps the cells that do the rebuilding. Chondrocytes.
Yes, exactly. Chondrocytes are the cartilage builders. This material claims pycnogenol protects them and even increases their numbers. And it connects this directly to outcomes claiming significant pain reduction, better function.
Like that knee osteoarthritis study you found in the notes.
The source references a study where people with knee OA taking pycnogenol reportedly had 56% less pain and needed 58% fewer NSAI drugs compared to placebo. And maybe most importantly, it claims they could walk pain-free for over 2 hours longer each day.
Those are pretty dramatic claims. And the source uses a personal story to illustrate this, right? Someone named Sarah.
Yes, the narrative leans heavily on Sarah's story. She was apparently facing joint surgery, tried this pycnogenol-focused approach, and, according to the source, improved so much she didn't need the operation. This supposedly led to trying it with others.
And it includes quotes from them, too, showing the kinds of changes possible.
Yeah, testimonials are used quite effectively. You see examples like Emily W. regaining independence, Robert J. fishing again, Linda M. playing pickleball. It paints a picture of moving from pain and limitations, struggling with buttons, jars, to being active, playing with grandkids, feeling free again.
So this whole approach, centered on pycnogenol and tackling the rust enzyme, that leads into the source's own product, called Joint Glide, it's positioned as the formula that puts this strategy into practice.
That's right. It's presented as specifically engineered to block the enzyme and rebuild the cartilage. And the source makes a bold claim that it's the only solution out there that does both of those things naturally.
Okay, so pycnogenol is the key, but what else is in this Joint Glide, according to the source?
It details several other ingredients and their claimed roles. One is devil's claw extract.
Heard of that one. For pain.
Yes, the source claims it significantly reduces pain and inflammation, even suggesting it's comparable to some NSAIDs based on cited studies, but without the side effects.
Does it also target the enzyme, like pycnogenol?
According to this material, yes. It says a compound in devil's claw called harpagoside not only helps the chondrocytes rebuild cartilage, but also reduces the rust enzyme activity, citing a 25% reduction from one study. Plus, it claims devil's claw helps hydrate the cartilage, making it thicker, more cushiony.
Interesting. So multiple angles of attack on the enzyme. What else?
White willow bark extract, historically used for pain, right? Contains salicylic acid related to aspirin, but the source also claims a compound in it called catechin protects collagen from the enzyme and boosts those chondrocyte cells.
Sort of like a bodyguard for the collagen.
That's kind of the framing, yeah. Then it includes two familiar names, MSM and glucosamine.
Right, very common in joint supplements.
But here's the source's twist. It claims they only really work providing raw materials, boosting chondrocytes if the rust enzyme is blocked first. So pycnogenol, devil's claw, white willow bark have to do their job before MSM and glucosamine can effectively contribute to rebuilding.
So they're like the bricks and mortar, but useless if the demolition crew is still wrecking the place.
That's the analogy the source implies, yeah. It also lists essential nutrients. Zinc, copper, magnesium, and vitamin B6. Each is given a specific role in collagen support.
Like what?
Zinc for production, copper for strengthening the structure, magnesium for protecting cartilage and boosting chondrocytes, and B6 for helping turn the raw materials into flexible collagen. It's presented as a comprehensive support package.
Seems like they're trying to cover all the bases for cartilage health, according to their model.
That's the idea presented for Joint Glide. And one last ingredient mentioned is black pepper extract, piperine, claimed to have its own pain-relieving anti-inflammatory effects, even citing a study comparing it favorably to a medication like prednisolone.
Okay, so Joint Glide, as described here, is this multi-pronged formula aiming to block the enzyme, rebuild the cartilage, provide nutrients, and ease pain.
That sums up the description in the source material.
And the source doesn't just talk about physical relief, does it? It paints a much bigger picture of transformation.
Definitely. It really leans into the emotional side, feeling like a burden, missing out on life, the constant mental drain of pain and stiffness.
And contrast that with this vision of reclaiming your life. Waking up refreshed, being active, playing with grandkids easily, feeling strong, flexible, confident, even having a better mood overall.
Yeah, it's framed as getting back your freedom and control. And it also briefly touches on the risks of not addressing the pain. According to the source, things like worsening arthritis, disability, even related issues like osteoporosis, falls, obesity, depression.
Underscores the stakes. Then it gets practical how to get this Joint Glide stuff. Not in stores, it says.
Right. The source claims that selling direct helps maintain quality and keeps the price lower. It lays out the options, 1, 3, or 6 bottles.
With discounts for buying more, I assume.
Yes. The price per bottle drops significantly with the larger packages. It goes from $69 for 1 to $59 each for 3, down to $49 each for 6.
And it pushes for longer-term use.
Strongly. It recommends 90 days or more for the best results, using that compound interest analogy benefits building over time. And there's a mention of potential price increases or stock running out, adding a bit of urgency.
Right. And the guarantee.
A 60-day full money-back guarantee based on complete satisfaction. The source notes that while many might feel changes quickly, like in 3 to 7 days, the 60 days gives you plenty of time to see if it works for you. Even if you use it all, you can get a refund if unsatisfied.
That sounds like a pretty solid risk reversal as presented.
It's framed that way, yes.
So the material basically ends by laying out 2 paths for the reader.
Option 1, do nothing. Continue with the pain, the limitations, potential worsening, maybe surgery eventually.
Or option 2, try Joint Glide. Presented as risk-free with the potential for relief, regaining freedom, getting your life back.
And it circles back to its main claim, that Joint Glide is different because it targets the source's identified root cause, that rust enzyme, driven by heavy metals and actively rebuilds cartilage. It also reassures on safety, all natural, GMP certified, USA made, tested.
And quickly covers the how-to. 2 capsules, morning with food and water. Consistency is key, it stresses. Delivery time, 5-7 business days.
Yeah.
It's really a complete narrative this source builds. From identifying an unconventional problem, the enzyme and metals, to critiquing standard approaches, presenting its specific solution with ingredient justifications, testimonials, and then a clear offer with a guarantee. It's quite persuasive in its structure.
It certainly lays out a very specific, detailed argument for its perspective and product.
Okay, so let's recap this deep dive into the material you brought us. We've looked at its core idea, joint pain caused by a rust enzyme, MMP, triggered by heavy metals. We saw its critique of things like collagen and turmeric, suggesting potential heavy metal contamination issues. And we explored its proposed solution, Joint Glide, focusing on ingredients like pycnogenol, devil's claw, and others, all aimed, according to this source, at blocking that enzyme and rebuilding cartilage.
It's definitely a hypothesis that runs counter to many mainstream explanations for joint degeneration.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on, based purely on this material we've discussed. How does this specific idea that heavy metals could be a primary trigger for something like osteoarthritis via this enzyme mechanism, how does that challenge our usual thinking about chronic conditions?
Yeah, and what does it make you consider about potential links between our environment, maybe things we're exposed to daily, and health problems that seem purely age-related or mechanical? It definitely makes you think about root causes from a different angle.
Food for thought, for sure. Thanks for bringing this material in. It was a fascinating perspective to unpack.
Always interesting to see different takes on complex problems.
And thank you for joining us for this deep dive.